Hey everybody, welcome back to the keyword selection and match type overview. And we've spent the large portion of our time going over match types and what exactly those entail and what the dictations are and what the requirements are and what kind of traffic it'll bring to you. And now that we've gone over and given you a foundation of understanding regarding match types, we're going to go through a couple of strategies for selecting match types, and hopefully that will help you decide which match type is going to be the most appropriate in each individual situation. So let's start by, I always ask myself when I'm selecting a match type what my actual goal is, what my intended goal is with this round of advertising. So let's say I'm building out a new campaign around, whatever it might be, whatever product or service I'm selling, and I've never tested this particular set of key phrases before or keywords. My goal then would be to run a test campaign and see how it converts. So typically you start from test and you go all the way to a full-blown campaign. You know it works well and I want to start bringing in more traffic. So starting at the top, I rarely use exact match or phrase match any longer. However, there are instances, where that would be necessary. So, one way you can define that is if your goal is to run an ultra-targeted test campaign where you don't want to blow out a budget, you don't want to spend a ton of money, you want to drive a small amount of traffic to see if this particular keyword converts, and you understand you're not going to be, driving tons of traffic with an exact match phrase. Ultra-targeted test would be a good fit for something like that, especially if it's a very general, broad keyword, maybe a 1 or 2 word keyword, and you just want to see if you can pick up some traffic and see how it converts. So if your goal is ultra-targeted and it's a broad, general, short tail keyword, exact match or phrase match may be what you want to start with. One strategy would be to start with an exact match on a short tail key phrase, and if it converts, open it up to a phrase match and allow some more traffic to come in to make sure, it wasn't a fluke. So, that might be one. Start it with exact on a short tail key phrase. If it performs after, a week or so, you can upgrade it to phrase match, ensure it still converts. And if that works, then I would go straight to D here, which would be the broad match modifier. So this would be exact match, ultra targeted test in this scenario. Once you identify that this has worked and you want to open it up to receive a little bit more traffic, you can jump up to a phrase match. And if all goes well there, then you can really open it up while still maintaining a high degree of control to a broad match modifier. Rarely would I ever use a broad match. One instance where a broad match in and of itself would be beneficial, and I could see somebody doing it, and I have done it in the past, is if my actual goal is not to convert right on the page, but it's to build a large retargeting list very quickly. So your retargeting lists are built based on users who come to your site, and then we anonymously drop a cookie onto their page, or your retargeting provider drops an anonymous cookie onto their page. So in that instance, the more people you have in your list who came from a generally targeted source, the better. So that's one instance where I could see using just, let's bring in tons of traffic. You go with the short tail key phrase, maybe it's running shoes, and that's it, and you go with broad match and you just drive a ton of traffic to your page and bulk up your retargeting list, and you'll pay for that. But that's one strategy I could see using there. Other than that, I don't really recommend ever using a broad match in and of itself unless it is intended for some specific purpose, like building out a retargeting list. So a couple of alternative strategies here would be to go with your match type based on the length of the keyword that you're targeting. So what I mean by that is, if you remember in one of our previous videos in this course, we went over the difference between a long tail and a short tail key phrase. So if you are targeting a long tail keyword with multiple, 4, 5, 6 maybe keywords in it, you can loosen up the match type a little bit and maybe start off with something in a broad match modifier as a test even. And if you're going to go with a short tail, very general keyword that you know is going to drive tons of traffic and maybe blow your budget out, you can start a short tail keyword in a test with maybe an exact match ultra targeted test or a phrase match ultra targeted, a little bit expanded test. So that's one way to consider it as well, depending on how common the search query is actually searched for by users, and you can learn that in the Google Keyword Tool as we went over. So that's an alternative strategy. So these are getting started things to think about. If you're building out a new campaign and you don't have a whole lot of experience, your match types are going to be very important, and you may want to experiment with your exact match and your phrase match, your broad match and your broad match modifier. If once you get a little bit more experience, then you could maybe move to an alternative strategy and dictate the match type based on how long or short the keyword or general the keyword that you're targeting is. Once you've gotten some experience under your belt and you know exactly what you're doing and how to control a campaign and how to keep your cost per click down and how to keep your quality scores high, we're going to go over all this stuff in the remainder of the course. Once you've done all of that, you can do what my standard strategy is, to start with the broad match modifier campaign. That's how I build all of my campaigns out. However, I would recommend, just to keep control of your budget and your spend and everything that's going on in your campaign, start out with a strategy like this: ultra targeted exact, expanded ultra targeted phrase match. Stay away from broad match, and once you've tested here and you know you've driven some conversions, move up to a broad match modifier campaign. Additionally, you can target an alternative strategy where you dictate the match type based on how long or short the actual keyword that you're targeting is. In our next video, we're going to go over becoming a broad match modifier master.